Hello, I'm Katherine Ramsland. I write the Psychology of Writing column for the Outliers group every other month, and I've done a few videos, and tonight I want to do one on something a little bit different, but it's still within psychology and some of the ideas I want to talk about. But it's about stretching yourself as a writer by applying your writing expertise to different types of applications. And I write true crime as well as crime fiction. I have a series, the Nutcracker Investigations, that has 4 novels in it. And some of them actually came from doing this other thing that I'm going to talk about, which was writing a travel column for an online magazine for about a year and a half. And what this involved is obviously travel, going to places, but also having to think up unusual places, unique things that would hook readers with something, even if it was a familiar destination, something they didn't know about this destination. And my theme was haunted crime scenes. So I've done a lot of stuff with ghost hunters and written some books with some, including paranormal forensics, and I do true crime. So I've been to a lot of these places. And I think that traveling and going to a place, especially if it's a place you're going to use for a setting, is terrific for a sense of immersion. The sensory detail, the level of humidity or dryness, for example, the kinds of sights that people would see if they're at this place, how people talk, how it sounds, what is it a quiet place, is it a busy place, etc. So I think those are all really great things for writers to do. But just the idea of going to unusual or unique places stretches you as a writer, gets you thinking from different perspectives, and also shows you, a different format for trying out what you do, and could lead to multiple other kinds of things besides the column that you might be writing. I happened to get to have this opportunity. It came my way. I went for it. I had a great time doing it. You might not be able to land something quite like this, but find ways, or do your own podcast, or whatever you want to do with it. But you have to go to these places. Don't try to Google it and figure it out from there. Travel, go do this. I did this at my expense, but it was well worthwhile. And I got a lot out of it besides just writing for this travel magazine. So let me tell you, I'm not going to go through all the different places, but I want to give you a little bit of an idea of some of the things that I did go to. One of the places was Savannah, Georgia, and this is the Mercer House. It's just kind of the center of Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. Obviously haunted because there's a lot of activity there, and Savannah happens to be a well-known haunted city. But not only did I get a great column out of this, but it launched actually my crime fiction series, because some things happened in Savannah that I was working on for the Court TV website. And it was sort of behind the scenes of this house, but some of the things that we found out about Jim Williams actually gave me an idea that launched that series and gave me a few scenes as well. So a very rich, sensual place was a great place to start. And then Ghost Ranch in New Mexico, north of Santa Fe, was where Georgia O'Keeffe had a house. One of her houses was in this kind of remote location. It's a family resort place now. But I found out that it had been named by and founded by two brothers who had been serial killers. They named it Ghost Ranch to keep law enforcement away. So they spread all these rumors about it being, witches were here and ghosts and whatnot. It was a great way to get a column. I got a blog out of it. It was delightful to find out this kind of background that most people did not know about it. I stayed at the Lizzie Borden house when I was working for John Douglas on a book called The Cases That Haunt Us. And I did actually sleep in this. It was a bed and breakfast at the time. I slept in the room where Abby Borden was slaughtered with an axe, and her body was found on the other side of the bed you see right here. So I got to stay in there, and I set up all my ghost equipment, but at the same time doing forensic investigation and research for John Douglas. So multiple things. I had so many different applications for just this experience in Fall River, Massachusetts. And then I went to a place called Taliesin East, Andrew Lloyd Wright, and I keep wanting to say Andrew Lloyd Webber. His family was massacred here, and it certainly has a reputation of being haunted. And I got not just the travel column, but a few other things out of it because it's not a well-known place, but really interesting and horrific kind of research. There's a theme, apparently, another axe murder in Iowa, Villisca, where somebody came into this house in the middle of the night and slaughtered 8 people, 6 children and 2 adults. And it's unsolved, and ghost hunters stay here overnight. They rent it out, they stay here, and they do their ghost hunting gigs. But it is really quite a horrific American crime. I also really advocate going to crime museums. A lot of them are in Europe. That's where they really began in the 19th century. But there's a few here as well. There's one in Savannah that's devoted to serial killers. There's one in New Orleans, and I think its sister is Los Angeles, maybe. There's a few, and there's one was one in Washington, D.C. I heard that it closed. But, going to the crime museums can yield a lot of stories, but also, being able to see things. Like I went to one in Rome that had the executioner's gown, that had an exhibit devoted to a female serial killer who had actually cut off, dismembered and beheaded her 3 victims, and boiled their flesh in a pot and baked their blood to make into tea cakes so that she could somehow supernaturally save her son's life when he was in Mussolini's army. This is Leonarda Cianciulli, and she was completely unknown. Now more people know about her, but I think I really launched one of the earliest stories about her because I'd never heard of her. And, there was this great exhibit. So just right there in the museum. And so I think those are great things to explore. The Sarah Winchester House, bizarre story about a bizarre person who was the heir to the Winchester fortune, but she had learned from psychics and mediums that the victims of the Winchester rifle, the ghosts were going to haunt her, and what they wanted her to do is build them a house. So she used the money to build this mansion and just kept adding rooms and rooms and stairs that went nowhere and doors that went nowhere. I've been in this place that it's limited. You can't go everywhere, but really interesting stories. She had a room devoted just to the spirits, and she'd have a dinner party for them nightly, I believe. This is the floor plan, but it was never ending. Sometimes she would tear things down and rebuild because the whole point was to keep building. She had to keep using the money to appease the spirits. So today you can go into some museum, again, limited, you can't go everywhere, but it is a pretty fascinating place. It's a great tour. That's in California, San Jose, I think it is, or somewhere thereabouts. Anyway, again, visiting places is wonderful. Deadwood, South Dakota is an amazing place where Wild Bill Hickok was assassinated. Essentially, he was shot over a card game, and this is the dead man's hand thing. But Deadwood was a really unique place. There was an HBO series dedicated to it. Was a pretty cool series. But what a unusual place, and talk about detail, a real sense of the Old West. But in the case of Deadwood, they were an unusual jurisdiction in that they really weren't under government rule, and they didn't want to bring any attention to themselves because they just wanted to do their own thing. But they had to have a trial because Hickok had been shot by this guy, Jack McCall, and they didn't. It was really a very tricky thing. So that's well done in the series. Really kind of fun. All kinds of interesting people that you've heard of from history kind of passed through here. So it's a tourist place now, but it's still worth visiting just to see kind of the sights. As I mentioned, the Museum of Death, this is in New Orleans, and exhibit rooms, you will learn things about different, they have a lot of different crime exhibits, some devoted to mass murder, some serial killing, some local crimes. So you really could collect a lot of information just from going to one place. I went to Whitechapel in London to get another column, as well as I got another series of books as well, but plenty of stuff for true crime research too. So going to Whitechapel was well worth it. And I actually went to a Jack the Ripper conference. So I met a lot of ripperologists there. And it's really hard these days to find things that are not completely done over for modern times. There's a few places that still look like 1888, but you have to really work to find them. So I did go on a couple of Jack the Ripper tours, but I created my own tour as well because I found out a lot more things than what the public typically knows about Jack the Ripper. And that helped me to get a better sense of what I wanted to do with the story for fiction. And so there are a couple of things why I recommend trying out a whole new application for your writing is that it gives you a different perspective. It stretches you. It gets you immersed in details that you might not otherwise consider. And you have access to learning things about something you want to write about, maybe in a different format that you might not otherwise know if you didn't go to these places. So I wanted to add my brief time as a travel writer to the mix of psychology of writing, because I would really urge writers to make travel a big component of what they do. Even if you're writing science fiction, fantasy, things you can just make up, it still helps to go to places that are unique and places that are, foreign to you, to learn more about what things look like and feel like and sound like, and sometimes taste like. So thanks for listening, and I hope I've inspired you to want to do something like this too.